Welcome back to my channel, Everlynn's Books and Tea. Today is March 1st, and you know what that means? We will be recording our March TBR in today's video. So every month I really look forward to recording this video. It's like a brand new start. We have a brand new TBR with books that I haven't read before on it, obviously, and it's just something to look forward to each time a new month comes around. So before we get started on creating our March TBR, let me just tell you a little bit about what happened in February. So my February TBR did not end up going too great. I ended up reading 3 out of the 7 prompts, plus my challenge book that I got from my February challenge. And I'm currently reading 2 of the other prompts. So in total, I will have read 5 out of the 7 prompts, but obviously that means I have failed my February TBR, and that means we need a brand new challenge for March. I really enjoyed doing the February challenge. It was kind of an easier challenge because I got that middle grade book to read, so it wasn't anything that was too in-depth. But, you know, every month is different. So let's bring up our 11 challenges that we have monthly, which should be over here. And let me pull up a random number generator and we will see what challenge we are going to do in March. So I have my random number generator. So let's hit generate and see what I get. All right, so we got the number 8, and that means that we will be reading a book in a different language this month. So I've been doing Spanish on Duolingo, so we'll be choosing a book that's written in Spanish. I will be choosing a children's book because there's no way that my Spanish is advanced enough to read anything more than that at this point. So I'll be searching through, I guess, Amazon and all the other bookstores to see what book I can find that is a children's book written in Spanish. This should be a fun challenge though, because I haven't read a book written in a different language before, so I'm excited to see how this goes, and I'll let you know when I post my March challenge video closer to the end of this month. So I think we got everything out of the way, so all that's left to do is to bring up our game board and do our first spin. So let's do our first roll and see what we get. All right, so for the first roll, we rolled a 7. And we landed on the snowman. So for our first roll, we rolled a 7, we landed on the snowman. So let me grab that bag over here. So this bag has our prompts that have to do with the cover of the book. It also has some miscellaneous prompts and then some series prompts, which are series that I'm either interested in reading or series that I'm already in the middle of. So let's see what we get for our first prompt for March. All right, so we got a series prompt, which I think is the first time we ever gotten one of these on this TBR game. And it is Boxcar Children. So that means we'll be reading book 1 of the Boxcar Children series. I somehow managed to accumulate this on my Kindle, and I like to read through all the books I have. So this will be our first electronic book for the month of March. It is a children's book. It's a book that I read a bunch of in the series when I was younger, and I keep these around to have kind of like a quick read to help me get through my TBR better if they do end up on my TBR. I'll be reading book 1 of the Boxcar series, which I believe is where the children are first found living out of a boxcar, and then they end up solving a mystery. So obviously I can't choose this book for both the electronic book and the physical book, so what we're going to do is we're going to choose a second prompt that we'll use to get our physical book so that we still have 7 physical books on our TBR. So let me grab the snowman bag again, and let's choose the prompt that we're going to use for our physical TBR list. All right, so we have a cover prompt, and it is a book with at least a 8-word title. So let me start counting numbers. I know when I did this way back, I think in September, I had a 5-word title and I messed that up, so 8 is a lot. So I think it says at least, right? Yeah, at least an 8-word title. So it could be 8 or more words of the title. So let me take a look through here and see what I got, and I'll be right back. So I found exactly one book that had 8 or more letters, or not letters, 8 or more words in the title, and it has exactly 8. It's a Dean Koontz book, and it's The House at the End of the World. So it's been a while since I read a Dean Koontz book. I either like them a lot or I don't like them. So I guess if I do read this month, we'll find out which side this book falls on. But this book takes place on Jacob's Ladder Island, which is a remote island where Katie lives, who used to be a rising star in the art world but is no longer. And the neighboring island that's called Ring Rock houses a government secret facility. And one day, two agents from Ring Rock arrive on Jacob's Ladder searching for something, but they won't tell Katie what it is. And then one night where there's this violent squall going on, a young girl appears. And now Katie and the young girl struggle against a terror that could bring about the end of the world. So that's it in a nutshell. So we'll be adding The House at the End of the World by Dean Koontz to our March TBR. And it's time to roll the dice and see what our second prompt is. All right, so let me bring up the game board. So for our second roll, let's see what we get. I believe that's a 1. And we land on the penguin. So for our second roll of the game, we rolled a 1 and we landed on the penguin. So let's grab that bag. For those who have seen me play the winter version of this game, you know that this bag has all the best prompts in it. It has the prompts that change every month that I play this game. So for this month, it has our monthly prompts that are going to be March. It has our seasonal prompts, which are still winter, and it has our astrological sign prompts, which are Pisces and Aries. So let's see what we get for our second prompt of the game. All right, we got, I got like 5 of them in my hand. All right, we're going to go with this one here, which is a monthly prompt, and it is gold on the cover. So we have to find a book that has gold on the cover. So let me take a look through our physical TBR and see what we have to choose from. So I found 2 books that fit this prompt. The first is The City of Dusk by Tara Sim. This is all kind of gold around the cover here. So this book is a fantasy. It's the first book in her Dark Gods trilogy. It's set in the City of Dusk, where these 4 realms that are life, death, light, and darkness all converge. And recently, the gods who have been giving their favor to the city have withdrawn their favor, and now the city is in danger of dying. And each of these realms has an heir, and now these heirs have to all come together, or else they're going to lose their city. So that's our first option. Our second option is A River of Golden Bones by A.K. Mulford. You can see that there is gold right here, and it has golden in the title, so that matches the prompt. So this book is also the first book in this series, and this one is The Golden Court. So this book is also a fantasy. It follows twins Calla and Briar, and they are hiding from a powerful sorceress who has destroyed their kingdom in the past. Now it's time for Briar to marry an ally, and actually an ally pact, because Briar and Calla are actually wolves that they've also been hiding from the world. And they have to marry this ally pact to try to get their court, their kingdom back. But as they are on the journey to go meet this ally prince, the evil sorceress catches up with them, uses a sleeping potion, and now is up to Calla, who's usually in the shadows, to save her sister and thus save the kingdom. So that's the second option. I think I'm going to go with A River of Golden Bones by A.K. Mulford, because this is a little bit of a skinnier book than this one. And after how well I did in February, I'm not looking to put too many really long books onto my TBR. And as it's the beginning of this TBR, I'm going to stick with this one. So we will add A River of Golden Bones by A.K. Mulford to our our March TBR. All right, so we just have to pick a book from our electronic TBR that has gold on the cover. So it's really hard to tell if a book has gold in the cover when you print them out onto paper, so I just made a guess. We're going to go with The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. It kind of has some golden hues up here where it kind of goes from orange to yellow, so it's close enough. That's what we're going to go with. So this is actually a historical fiction book. It starts off in 1940 England, where England's about to enter World War II. 3 women are called to come to Bletchley Park, which is the place where the best minds in Britain have kind of gathered in an attempt to break Germany's military codes. They initially become very close friends, but then something happens where there's a betrayal, and by the end, as they're leaving Bletchley Park, they are no longer friends. Fast forward 7 years when a mysterious encrypted letter is sent, and they end up having to get back together, put their alliance back together to crack the code of this letter, because whoever wrote it is a traitor that has emerged from the shadows of Bletchley Park's past. So that's what the book's about. I think it's a good option because it is a historical fiction book, and I don't have a lot of those on my TBRs usually. So it'll be kind of like a little mix of genre if I end up reading this one. But this will be our second electronic book on our TBR, The Rose Code by Kate Quinn. So I guess it's time to do our third roll of the game. All right, so for our third roll, we rolled in 8, I believe. Oops, and I bumped the board with my long sleeves. I kind of dangle. Yeah, so we rolled an 8. We got another penguin. All right, so for our third roll, we rolled another 8. We got another penguin. So let's see what we get for our third prompt of the game. All right, so we have a winter prompt, and it is a book set in a foreign, real, or make-believe land. So that's easy. So we just have to find either a fantasy book or a book that's set in a different world or a different land. So not too hard to do. So there are several books that we can go with for this prompt. First off, we have What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This is a fantasy book starts off in Buenos Aires, Brazil, then goes to Egypt. So obviously not set in the US, so that would be an option. We have The Wicked King by Holly Black, which is our second book in the Cruel Prince series. This is set in a different realm as well, so another option. We also have Throne of Glass, of course, by Sarah J. Maas. This book has been on my TBR a lot, and I just haven't gotten to read it because I always end up reading the electronic book for the prompt that is chosen for. And then we have, of course, The City of Dusk, which we just talked about, by Tara Sim. So a lot of options. I think I am going to go with The City of Dusk by Tara Sim. Get this onto my TBR. It is one of the longer books, but I can always go with the electronic option if I, need a shorter book to read, provided that the electronic option is shorter. So we will add this as our third book to our March TBR. All right, so we just have to pick out an electronic book over here, and I'll be right back. So I found the book we're going to use for our electronic book. It's called The Great Passage by Cheyenne Mayora, and it's a book that the author is from Japan, and the book is set in Japan. So it definitely meets the prompt of a different land that is not the one I'm living in, which is the US. This book is actually about a lover of books who's about to retire from his job at I don't know if it's a bookshop or a book publisher place, but he needs to find an apprentice to take over his job. He ends up finding a young apprentice and brings him on board. And one of the first tasks that this young apprentice gets is to look through this 2,500 page tome about the history of the Japanese language. And the book is fiction, and I think is centered kind of around the theme of friendship. So we are going to add this one to our TBR. My Around the World challenge for the month of March is Japan, so this fits both being written by an author from Japan as well as being set in Japan. So The Great Passage by Cheyenne Mayora will be our third electronic book. All right, so now it's time to do our fourth roll of the game and see what we land on. All right, so for our fourth roll, I believe we rolled a 5, 6, 7, and we landed on the snowman. So for our fourth roll of the game, we rolled a 7. We landed on the snowman again, so let's grab that bag. And this bag has our cover prompts, some miscellaneous prompts, and our series prompts. So let's see what we get for our fourth prompt. All right, so we have a cover prompt, and it is read a book with a color in the title. So we just have to find a book that has a color in the title. Not too hard, it can be any color. So let me start taking a look through our book list, and hopefully I will find a book that has a color in the title. So I found a couple books that had colors in the title. We have The Scarlet Odyssey, which is book 1 in the series. We have Black Trillium, which is also book 1. I ended up going though with Song of Silver, Flame Like Night by Amelie Wenzel. So silver, definitely a color. This is a fantasy book. It also is book 1 in the series. It's set in a world without magic and follows the main character Lon. And a long time ago, when Lon was a child, she had a mysterious mark that was burned into her arm when her mother died. This mark could be seen by no one until a boy named Zen appears. And Zen ends up being a practitioner of magic. He is one of the fabled magicians of the Last Kingdom. And Zen actually realizes that Lan is also a practitioner of magic and has some very strong abilities. And the two of them end up having to fight for the Last Kingdom. So this is the book that we will choose as our fourth book on our TBR. It's a YA book, and it's Song of Silver, Flamelight Night by Amelia Wenzhou. So now we gotta look through our electronic books, see which one of these has color in the title. So I looked through all the electronic books. I only found one with a color in the title, and that is As Red as Blood by Sala Samuka. So this sounds like it's kind of a thriller mystery book. It's the first book in the author's Lumiki Anderson series. It follows Lumiki and starts off with her finding these thousands of Washiro notes that are hanging from the dark room in her school, and then she also ends up finding 3 of her classmates with blood on their hands. But then at the center of this chaos is a drug lord named Polar Bear, who, despite having this very notorious reputation, has been able to remain anonymous. And that is all I know about this book. So this is the one that we'll be adding, As Red as Blood, because red is a color, and it's by Sala Samuka. So we are over halfway through our March TBR. We got 3 more rolls to go, so let's see what we get for our 5th roll of the game. All right, so for our 5th roll of the game, we knocked our little guy over. We rolled a 8, maybe? Well, we landed on the hat. So for our 5th roll, we rolled an 8 again. This time, though, we landed on the hat. So this is the bag for the hats. So you see the little sticker here. This bag actually has our cover prompts. I'm pretty sure I've been saying that for the snowman bag. That bag has title prompts. But this has our cover prompts, some miscellaneous prompts, and some series prompts. So let's see what we get for our 5th prompt of the game. All right, so we have a cover prompt, and it is a illustrated cover. So that's easy. We get this prompt quite often, which I'm not complaining about because these are the prompts that are pretty easy and kind of like a freebie. So let me take a look through our TBR and I'll let you know what I choose. So I found the book I'm choosing. I kind of had an idea I was going to go with this one because I've been wanting to continue the series, and that is Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the 2nd book in her Natural series. I read the 1st book in February and really enjoyed it. So the Natural series is a young adult kind of thriller series. It's been called the Criminal Minds, which is a TV show for young adult books. They're nice, quick, easy reads, and they definitely keep you engaged, which I enjoy. So this book follows a group of teenagers who are known as the Naturals, who have these natural abilities that FBI units, CIA units would love to have. And typically their abilities have to be taught to other people, and these teenagers kind of come by them naturally. So the main character, Cassie, has a natural ability to be a profiler. There's another character who just has a natural ability with numbers and facts. There's one that has a natural ability to be able to read people. And this book, in the 1st book, they ended up having to solve a serial killer mystery. I'm not sure what happens in the 2nd book, but I'm definitely looking forward to finding out. So this book will be our 5th book on our TBR. For the illustrated cover, you can definitely see that this cover is illustrated. And it is Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So let's take a look over here and see what book we're going to go with from our electronic TBR. There are so many options on our electronic TBR. We could choose The Last Graduate, which is the 2nd book in the Skull and Man series that I really enjoyed. We have Far North by Michael Ridpath, which is a series that follows this detective in Iceland. I read the 1st book and it was kind of fun. There's not a lot of books that I read set in Iceland. I definitely enjoyed that. And we have a bunch of fantasy books we can choose from, mystery thriller books. We pretty much can choose from anything on this board. Most of these covers are illustrated. What I ended up going with, though, is Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. This is the 1st book in the Wayward Children series. It is a novella, so it's a short book, so these books are nice to just throw onto the TBR. If I'm getting overwhelmed at the end of the month, I can just grab this one to read and mark off a prompt. So the plot of this book is where children end up disappearing, into these magical lands, and at some point the magical lands no longer need them and throw them back into their own world, but the things that they experience in this magical world entirely change them. So a lot of these children end up under Miss West's care in this home. One of the children that end up in this home is Nancy, and her arrival kind of changes the home. And then when tragedy strikes, it's up to Nancy and her new friends at this home to get to the heart of the mystery, no matter what the cost is. So that's our second option, Every Heart, a Doorway by Shannon McGuire. It's an illustrated cover and it's a novella, so it'll be a nice quick read if I need it in March. So we have 2 more rolls to go, 2 more prompts to choose. So let's get to our 6th roll and see what we get. All right, so for our 6th roll, we rolled a 7. And that puts us around the board and onto a snowman. So for our 6th roll of the game, we rolled a 7. We landed on the snowman again, so let's grab that bag. So this bag has our title prompts and some miscellaneous and series prompts as well. So let's see what we get for our 6 prompts. All right. Oops. All right, so we have a title prompt, and it is a book with a 3-word title. So we had a book with a 8 or longer word title. Now we have a 3-word title. So let's take a look and see what we have to choose from. We have some options here. We got The Wicked King again by Holly Black. That's 3 words, The Wicked King. This again is book 2 in the Cruel Prince novel, which is a fantasy young adult novel, kind of like a romantasy, that follows a human who ends up in the elf world because her sister is half or full, I forget. I think half elf. And kind of what happens to her there. So that's our first option. We have The Candy House by Jennifer Egan. So The Candy House, 3 words. I think this is like a science fiction it's kind of like a science fiction novel. It's based in a world where a tech guru makes up this new technology that allows you to access every memory that you ever had, and you can also share your own memories with others in exchange for theirs. But then not everyone thinks this is a good idea, obviously. And what the book is really about is about human connection, is what it kind of comes down to. So that's another option. And then we have our romance option, which is Digging Up Love by Chandra Bloomberg. So this book follows Alicia, who is a baker and dreams to have a cookie shop in Chicago. And it follows Quentin, who is a paleontologist who's hoping to get the next big discovery. And what happens is Alicia is living with her grandparents and a dinosaur bone turns up in the grandparents' backyard, which brings Quentin into the picture. So that's our 3 options. We have our fantasy option, our kind of science fiction / literary fiction maybe option, and then romance. And since we have no romance on our TBR yet, I'm going to go with Digging Up Love by Chandra Bloomberg and add that as our 6th physical book to our March TBR. And then for our electronic book, I'm actually going to throw a science fiction book onto our TBR because we don't have any real science fiction books either. And that is Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So this book is set in the future where Earth has basically been destroyed and humanity and the last of humanity boards this ship to go out into the stars to find somewhere to live. And they end up finding a planet that has already been terraformed and is all ready for them to live in. Only it's not abandoned like they thought. There's a second species who wants the planet, and now it's a clash of humanity and the second species to see who is going to survive. So this is the first book, and I think it's called the Children of Time series. So we're going to add this to our March TBR as well. So it's time for our 7th and final roll for our March TBR. So let's see what we land on. All right, so for our 7th roll, we rolled a 3. And we landed on the hat. So for our 7th and final roll, we rolled a 3, and that put us on the hat again. So let's grab that bag. This bag has our cover prompts, miscellaneous, and series prompts. So let's see what we get for our 7th and final prompt for March. All right, so we have a cover prompt, and it is a cover with water on it. All right, so we have some good options for this. The first one is The Stranded by Sarah Daniels. I'm not sure what genre this is. It may be horror, but I'm not entirely sure. There is water here. You can see it's a ship, and then there's water here and on the back cover, so it fits the prompt. So this The little thing here, the little blurb here says, "The ship is their world. To survive, they must end it." So this book takes place on the Arcadia cruise ship, which for the last 40 years has been home to the stranded. So they live on the ship, they die on the ship, they are always on the water, and no one can ever disembark ever. The book follows a 16-year-old girl who is working hard for the rare chance to be able to live a life on land as a medic. But her plans become derailed when she saves Nick, who is a rebel who's intent on this dangerous strategy to liberate the Arcadia. And so now both are willing to risk anything and everything to make it to dry land. And because of this, they find themselves in the center of a revolution, and their choices will end up deciding the fate of all those who live on this ship. So that's an option. Then we have two books that we kind of already talked about, which is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. This book starts off in Buenos Aires, where Inez lives, and the only thing that she really wants in the world is her parents, and her parents are these globe-trotting people, so they aren't ever really home. Currently, they are in Egypt, and one day Inez gets the news that her parents have died in Egypt. So she ends up going to Egypt wearing the ring that her father had given her before he left on this trip. And when she lands in Egypt, the ring ends up flaring with this ancient magic. And now she's thrust into this world that she never knew existed. So that is What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. You can see the water down here. It's a little hard, but it's right here. And that's the river, water on the cover. And then our last book is The Wicked King by Holly Black. Again, this is the second book in the Cruel Prince series, which is a young adult kind of romantasy series. I read the first book either back in December or January, and I did end up enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the series. And I'm going to choose this book out of the three because I am in the middle of the series. If I end up reading this, I will be only one book away from completing the series, and then I can check the series off my to-be-completed series list. So we'll go with The Wicked King by Holly Black, the second book in the Cruel Prince series. And there's water on the cover too. See, the crown is underwater, so meets the prompt. All right, so it's time to look at our electronic TBR and choose our last book for March. So I found two books that have water on the cover. One's a thriller, one's a romance book. So the first one is I Am Watching You by Teresa Driscoll, and I believe she's standing on the edge of the ocean, so that would be water. So this book follows Ella. One day she's on this train and she's watching these two young attractive men flirting with these two teenage girls, and she just feels that something's not right, and it turns out the two are fresh out of prison, and just as she's about to intervene, something happens and she's not able to intervene. The next day it turns out that one of the teenage girls, Anna, is missing. So a year passes, Anna is still missing, and now Ella, while wrecked with guilt for everything that happened, starts to receive these threatening letters that make her fear for her life. But the letters also show that someone knows where Anna is and that someone is not telling Ella, and they are also watching her. So that's our first option. Then our second option is Sea Glass Sunrise by Donna Kaufman. This is book one in her Brides of Blueberry Cove series. So the book follows Hannah, who is a DC lawyer who has recently traveled home for her brother's wedding after being betrayed personally as well as professionally. And also in town happens to be contractor Calder Blue, who wants to build the town's hotly contested new yacht club, as well as mend a, centuries-old family feud. So it turns out that both Calder and Hannah end up tangled in each other's business day after day, and thus the romance continues from there. So those are our two options. I'm going to go with I Am Watching You by Teresa Driscoll just because I don't want to start another series on my already long series list, and this is a standalone book. We also don't really have a true thriller on here. We have the young adult thriller, but not like a full-on thriller. So this will be another nice little mix to our March TBR, which is full of a lot of different genres. So I'm excited. So we'll add I Am Watching You by Teresa Driscoll to our March TBR. All right, so we have completed our March TBR. I'm really excited about these books. I feel like we got a lot of different genres on them. We got some young adult, we got some middle grade, we also have some adult books. So it's like just a very good range and a very good variety for March. So I'm excited to get to reading these. But before we end this video, let's do a recap on all the books we chose for each of the prompts. So for a title that had to have 8 or more words in the title, we have Ding Coots' The House at the End of the World. And then that was a prompt that we also chose a series prompt for, which was The Boxcar Children. So we'll be reading the first book in the Boxcar Children series, which is called The Boxcar Children. Maybe reading it. Or we might be reading The House at the End of the World. We'll see. So for our second prompt, we had to have gold on the cover. And we have The Rose Code by Kate Quinn and A River of Golden Bones by A.K. Mulford. For our third prompt, we had to read a book that wasn't written in the U.S. basically. And we had The Great Passage by Shion Miura, which takes place in Japan, and we have The City of Dust by Tara Sim, which is a fantasy book set in a different world. For our fourth prompt, we had to have a title that had a color in it, so we have As Red as Blood by Sala Samuka, and we had Song of Silver Flame Like Night by Amelia Wenzel. For a book that had an illustrated cover, we have Every Heart a Doorway by Shannon McGuire and Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. For a book with a 3-word title, we have Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky and Digging Up Love by Chandra Bloomberg. Then for our last prompt, we had to have a book that had water on the cover. We have I Am Watching You by Teresa Driscoll and The Wicked King by Holly Black. So that is our March TBR. I'm definitely excited for a lot of the books on this TBR. I can't wait to get to them. And I think, like I said before, we have a good variety. We got romance, thrillers, young adult. We got some fantasy books, a science fiction book, a horror book. I'm pretty sure we hit a lot of the genres on this TBR. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you have any thoughts on the books I have on this TBR, or which book I should choose between the physical and electronic book for each prompt, please leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts. If you have any other books that you think I should put onto my TBR, please let me know as well. Otherwise, if you want to see future videos of me, feel free to hit the subscribe button. I think the next video from me will be my February recap video, and then following that will be my March challenge video reading the book in a foreign language. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.